have a tendency to antagonize the Sixers loyalists because they had to convince themselves that being abjectly terrible for a long time was for the greater good. So they're all in on their team in a much different way because I feel like people want a certain measure of vindication for buying into that travesty that they got into. And now here where they are, right? Embiid's got this knee problem that, I don't think that we're just talking about something that's going to be a thing right now. He's playing on a torn meniscus. That's not a good long-term thing to do. The other superstar talent that they have is Ben Simmons, and he seems terrified of the idea of shooting in an NBA game, which is kind of a weird thing to say about an NBA player. They gave $30 million to Tobias Harris, and he's just being Tobias Harris. He should have played better than he did yesterday, but, I don't know exactly what it is you think he's supposed to get out of Tobias Harris. And they really talked themselves into thinking that this was a team that was going to win the championship. But who knows? It may be a disaster right now. They ultimately turn into champions, but they look like bums last night.
That is a soliloquy that I cannot argue a single syllable is off at all, Bomani. And the way that you started it is a perfect way. Is that what did you say? That being abjectly terrible for a long time was for the greater good, that the trust the process doesn't wind up with this being the end result that requires Daryl Morey to come in, and change things around from what Sam Hinkie, his friends, started. That may actually be the bright, shining object in the room for the Sixers to have to deal with right now.
So for me, with the Hinkie thing, his tenure was abbreviated, and you can't. It's easy to lump it all together and then say he's responsible for Markelle Fultz. And I don't even know who's responsible for that, to be perfectly honest. But that's not on him. He didn't draft Ben Simmons, but he would have drafted Ben Simmons because we all would have drafted Ben Simmons under the same circumstances.
Correct.
But the idea was we can get the best way to do this is to do this in order to get the caliber of top line talent that is needed to win in the NBA. And they got it, except Embiid, when they got him, was an open box special because he was hurt and has been fairly consistently hurt for much of his career. And then Simmons has all the talent, but there seems to be a sort of block that stops him from becoming the player that they need him to be in order for this team-building strategy that they've used to work.
So what happens? You can't dispute also your analysis, Bomani Jones, that Simmons looks like he's afraid to shoot in an NBA game, which is strange to say about an NBA player. 0 for 1 in the second half of a game where, they were killing it in the third quarter and then couldn't get anything done properly in the fourth quarter. That is the ultimate. And then also being a liability on the court to allow the Hawks to get the possessions they needed to get back in the game because he can't make a free throw. That's wild.
The free throw thing is weird because he's not the first person that we've seen teams intentionally put on the line, right? We saw it from Shaq, obviously. We've seen it from, Dwight Howard.
DeAndre.
Got it. Yeah, right. And then DeAndre Jordan, who's not the same caliber player of these guys that we're talking about, but he wound up on the business end of the same strategy. The thing that's interesting about all those guys, though, that's different from Simmons is they went up there and they were in their heads, obviously, when they were shooting the free throws at times, but it didn't seem to affect everything else. And so with Simmons, the free throw thing seems to spill over, and then he doesn't want to do anything, and then he's terrified of getting the ball because then they're going to put him on the line. But the truth is, if you go and you hit 1 out of 2 free throws every time they do that, that's actually a win. If you can get 1 point per possession on that, the teams aren't going to keep this up. But if you shoot 4 for 14, then I don't know why they tried anything else. I would have been trying to sign a free agent in the middle of the game just to get 6 fouls.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.